So let's go ahead and get started. So we're going to talk about cousin baiting and cousin stalking. And as you've noted, my name is Christine Cohen and my website is very novel, ChristineCohenGenealogy.com. So why are we talking today about genealogy? Because if you look in the dictionary, it is a record of your ancestors. It's talking about your ancestors, the descent from your original ancestors, right? We're always talking about ancestry all the time. But I want you to turn your tree upside down wherever you have it. My Heritage, Ancestry, Family Tree Maker, Roots Magic, and I want you to visualize going back to your great-grandparents, things like that. But I want you to look at all those people that were their descendants, because I don't think this isn't common. I don't think to be the only child of the only child of the only child for 200, 300 years. That you likely have aunts, uncles who then have cousins and cousins and cousins. So we want to look for your relatives and their descendants going forward in time. So you're going to turn your tree upside down. Also, I think it's great because this is a shared passion. I don't know about you, but genealogy can be an isolating hobby. Is this you sitting in front of your computer in your office by yourself, nobody else there to talk to or anything like that? And if you have a cousin maybe that you can connect to that maybe lives in an area you want to go research or something like that, they can go to the cemetery with you, the library with you. They can go to a seminar, a conference. It's someone that's not going to roll their eyes or get glassy-eyed when you start talking about great grandpa Fred and what he did in the Depression or something like that. So I had a cousin until she passed recently. It was awesome to go to all these conferences and seminars with me. We shared great grandparents, and it just was so heartwarming to be able to share this with her. So I think that's a wonderful reason in this day and age of sitting behind your computer to go interact with somebody. So what else can you do? Well, oftentimes this happened to me. Maybe it's happened to your family. Was the youngest person the one that ended up cleaning out your parents' house, cleaning out grandpa's house? Maybe they took care of your elderly parents. Well, maybe they obtained the naturalization paper, the photos, the family letters, the registers of births and deaths. And maybe you descend from the eldest who are 20 years apart and really didn't interact when the parents passed. So you don't know who inherited everything. So these are just some of the items that I inherited and I obtained from some of my cousins. Also, these are the people that are going to help break down a brick wall, because you want to look collaterally, not just your direct line. You want to go out and reach out to those half siblings. Do you have a third great grandfather, like my husband, who married 4 times? And each one of those wives, they had children, so he has half siblings and things like that. Those are the people that maybe inherited things, that maybe can explain things. So these are the people that can help you break down that brick wall. Often your ancestor remarried really late in life. Perhaps as they got older, they remarried and had a second wife that you weren't aware of or never connected with. Well, she, her, maybe she got the family photos and things like that. How about rescuing heirlooms and giving them a good home? Now, perhaps does everybody in your family know that you're the genealogist, that you're the one who cares about all these things? Make sure when you reach out to these cousins, if they have things and they're like, I don't know, is this letter from World War II and grandpa was over there important? I don't think so. You want to say, yes, it's very important. I will give those items a good home. And I know for my society, we often get inquiries from members whose grandchildren say, I don't know what to do. She did 30 years of genealogy. What do I do with her stuff? I don't know. So make sure when you're connecting with these people, maybe they don't care about genealogy, but you can say, you know what? If you have a box of photos, if you have letters, if you have something, I will pay to have them shipped to me. You don't know what's there, because perhaps especially someone really young, they might not even know what a newspaper is. They don't see them. So make sure you tell them, I will make a good home. You will rescue these items. And of course, DNA. We are all taking these tests, and we need to reach out maybe to the uncle to take the Y-DNA test, to the maiden aunt to take the mtDNA test. And there is a lot of DNA out there, and we'll talk more about fishing in every pond with those DNA tests. So where are we going to start? You're going to look at your group sheets. You're going to start 1850 to 1950, because those are maybe where you can get a portrait of a family and populate it. You want to look for a family that perhaps had several children that you can document going forward in time. You can see their marriages and their children and their descendants. You may want to try and maybe focus first upon people who have more unusual surnames, Sophia versus Anna or Mary, someone whose name is maybe a little easier to find. You want to maybe get those military pensions for someone who served in World War I, World War II, something like that. Maybe you can get their service records where they talk about their descendants. Maybe it's not your direct line, but maybe it's a collateral line. Make sure you scour those obituaries for your descendants and you note the children. And we always seem to do this in our obituaries. When someone passes and we list their children, we're always going to list them in birth order. We always seem to do this. It's never usually Bob, Ted, and Frank. It's always, well, Bob is the oldest, then the middle child, then the last child. That is always what we do. So we're going to talk a little bit about the scouring obituaries. So how are we going to cousin bait and cousin stalk? Well, we're going to look at online trees, DAR, SAR, the Knowles collection. Is anybody familiar with that? New England Historic Genealogy Society, Social Security. It indexes an application, cemeteries, obituaries and newspapers, draft registrations, living people websites and living people finders, and social media. And we're just going to touch on all of these, how they can assist you in your research. So online trees. Has everybody fished in every pond? You have at least a tree or at least your line you're having trouble with on all of these sites, or have you poked around on all of these sites? So I'm just going to give you a broad overview of Ancestry, MyHeritage, Genie, WikiTree, GeniaNet, Family Search, Fold3, and Lost Cousins. So Ancestry, you do not have to have a paid account to get a lot of bells and whistles. And one of the free guest accounts that you can have is accessing a lot of the databases that are free, but making and creating a tree, watching their videos, sharing your tree, inviting other people, posting messages. A lot of these features are included in that free account, so you don't have to pay to have it. You may not have thought about it. And when you have that free account, make sure that you put your photo. If it's not you, maybe it's you as a baby, or maybe it's a picture of your grandmother. But according to Ancestry, Krista Cohen, she says that she, in her opinion, gets better results on people who have a photo included because they look like they're really researching. And also, if you don't know who a parent is, at least put unknown. So if someone looks at their tree and you wrote unknown mother or something like that, or as in my husband's line, when his Jacob Cohen came over, he came over and his passenger list, the Cohen was spelled Kohn, and he, of course, changed it later on after he was here for a while in Buffalo. But I'm likely looking for his ancestor in Galicia with the name of Kohn. So put that on your tree. So make sure you fill out your tree as best you can. Also, have you used all the tools? Are you paying for your Ancestry subscription and are you getting the most out of it? Have you gone over to the Tools tab? And then have you clicked on Show Research Tools? And have you clicked on Member Connect? Because that is Ancestry's AI in the background searching for people who have the same basic information about an individual. This is one of my second great grandfather, Samuel and Benjamin Owen, who was born somewhere in Ontario County, New York, and died in Oklahoma. His parents are a mystery for me. I guess I know who they are based on some research, but I do not know. It is definitely a work in progress. So I want to click on that Member Connect, and I want to see, according to Ancestry, they found 14 other people who are researching a person with a similar name, dates, and places. It may not be the same person, but it could be. So if it is, I want to connect to these people. 100% of the time, of course, I'm not going to get a connection with them and have them reply back, but 14 is a pretty good number. So make sure you're getting the most out of your Ancestry subscription. And when you do, I notice we have a Member Connect for Samuel Benjamin Owen. I'm writing this to my cousin. I think his father is Austin and his mother is Margaret. This person's tree has someone named A.B. Owen. Where did you get that on your tree? I want to ask him perhaps. Do you have more information? I'm excited to have a lead. Thank you, and I hope that we connect. How about inviting your cousins to share and view your tree? This is just a small portion of all the sharing I have done with various cousins since, as stated in my bio, my mother's family has been here since the 1630s. So I do have a lot of cousins out there over many lines, and I reach out to them and I allow them and control what they see. Are they a contributor, meaning they can upload things, or are they just a guest, meaning they can only look at things? Do I want them to be able to see my living family members or not? It's up to you to control that when you invite and share. So, cousin Diane, my husband's cousin, who was so kind to me at a bar mitzvah that we went to in Florida, and we were talking about the family, and I said I couldn't find where the gentleman they call Grandpa ID, who was Isidore Horowitz, I could not find his passenger list. And she said, "Oh, well, that's because that was his mother's name. Or his father's name. He actually used his mother's name when he came over. I didn't know that, but cousin Diane told me I connected with my cousin. So I wanted to share what I'd found about our family tree with her. So on Ancestry, you can use another feature of tools. If you have a person listed as living on your tree, pull down that tools menu, invite them to your tree. Maybe you have a group of cousins who all share a particular ancestor. You can then invite them to be part of a family group. So share. You'll never know what you're going to find. This is what happens when you invite them. You can invite them by a link, by email, by username. You can have their role, as I said, be a guest, a contributor, an editor. You also perhaps can include a message. So I want to tell Diane, I want to share this tree with you and share what I have found, and would like you to share with me. So make sure you add a personal message when you send these, because I think that, of course, will help. Have you used all of the comments and tag alerts on your ancestry tree? Well, this is another one of my challenging lines I have in Connecticut in the 1700s. I am still researching this family. It is a brick wall, and I have used the tag actively researching hypothesis. So if someone looks at my tree, they know that I am still not 100% sure this is correct. So I'm going to put that tag on there. So use tags. Also, in the comments section, which everybody can see, versus the notes section, which only I can see, I can put in my comments, is Ebenezer and Keziah the parents of Ebenezer? I don't know. Do you know? Make it enticing for someone to look at your tree and say, oh yeah, I'm sure that that's his father, something like that. So use those tags and use those comments to draw people in. On your tree, you can control your tree, of course. If you have a public tree, anyone can see it. They cannot change it unless you give them editor status. But if you have a public tree, it means your cousins can find you. If you have a private tree that no one else can see, they can still find you on a connect, but they're not going to be able, they are not going to be able to see anything about your tree, just that you may be connected and they're not sure how. Or if you don't want anyone to ever find you, if you collect that button at the bottom, no one will find you. No one will ever find you. Your tree will be completely private. It is up to you. But if you want to find those cousins, a public tree is the best way. Do you have a very robust profile on Ancestry? This is my ancestry profile. I say how old I am and where I live. I give a little bio. I give them my website. I promote my society on here. If they, for some reason, can't find me, they could reach out to my society, perhaps find me. I also have all of my social media links on there. So if you haven't done that, think about adding all of those to your tree so that everybody could find you. Maybe they're more comfortable reaching out through Facebook or Twitter or something. So make sure you have a robust tree. Next, we're going to jump over to MyHeritage. You may have a paid subscription, you may use the library edition, but you can have a free subscription and put your tree on there and on your tree though, you can only have about up to 250 people on your tree. So this may be under this basic free membership where you want to put that line that you're stuck on. If you have this line through your parents and you're all set, you know them back across the pond and everything like that, and you've gone as far as you can, but on your other line, you're stuck, maybe that's the 250 people that you want to put on the basic tree on MyHeritage, which is free. And they do have a very strong presence with a lot of European records. They recently purchased Filet, which is a website that is focused on French records. And they do support Hebrew as a language. So you could perhaps connect with someone who speaks Hebrew. So here is some of the matches that I have when I've put on my tree. You can do matches in the discovery section, matches by people, by source, and what they call instant discovery. So on the left is what I have about this person, and this person that I matched with has a very robust set of information about Luther Clinton Burnham, about where he was born, where he died, his parents, his siblings, on and on and on. So this person has a very robust set of information. Of course, I want to vet it all to see if it's correct, but let the AI in the background see if they can connect you and your tree with someone else. So here's some matches by source that I've found. So this is my husband's tree. I have a gentleman from Israel who has a tree that matches my husband's line. And you are able, as part of the free part, to be able to connect with him. I could send him a message through MyHeritage. Another couple sets they have by matches by source are the public sources and the view discoveries. Now you need a paid membership to see these, but oftentimes the thumbnail view of the published sources are enough that I can go seek them out someplace else. And oftentimes, as you can see, the thumbnails of these discoveries are easy enough. Oh, those are pictures probably on Find a Grave or Billion Graves. So sometimes you can have a little workaround without having to pay on MyHeritage. You get emails from them after you have your tree, where MyHeritage says, I have found Stephen from France who has some smart matches. This is on my paternal line, which is all in England and in Europe. And I am able to then reach out to Stephen and connect with him. And I get emails from the MyHeritage AI whenever they find anything. Also, I want to set up my preferences on my free account on MyHeritage. I want to allow people to look at my profile, my name. You control all of this on what everybody can see and how everybody can connect with you. If you have a bad experience, if you don't want to do this, you can uncheck all these boxes. It is up to you. But if you want to reach out and find those cousins, you may want to have all these boxes checked on your MyHeritage profile. Has anybody used Genie.com? You can import your GEDCOM into Genie. There is no limit on what you can put in here. This is a completely free website. They do have a paid portion that has more bells and whistles, but again, you need to fish in every pond. You don't know where you might connect with your cousin. So if you find somebody that's a cousin of yours on Genie, you may want to, again, send them an email. Raymond, I've added you on my Genie tree. Would you like to view my tree? Here is what I know about you. You can, as in Ancestry, you can send these links to people, and Raymond can add relatives. They can be invited and that kind of thing. So use Genie also, because you have no idea. This may be the only place this person decides to work. They don't have a tree on Ancestry. They don't have one on MyHeritage, but they love Genie. So you don't know where they could be putting information. And on a similar vein, have you used WikiTree? WikiTree is a free resources. There is no paid aspect of it, and it is a one single tree. There's no private trees on this. It has a lot of really good resources and connecting with cousins. They have 1 million people, mostly genealogists and serious family historians, according to them, 36 million profiles, 12 million DNA connections. So I'm going to go in and create my free account on WikiTree. I'm going to upload portions of my tree and connect into their one big tree. And once a week, I get a feed from WikiTree that states that someone has added something with a surname that I'm researching. It may not be my particular line, but it may be, I don't know. Once a week, I get a little email and I just take a minute, I peruse. I wonder, does Harriet Owen fit into my line somewhere? Does Henry Stephen Owen fit into my line somewhere? So that's a feature of WikiTree that you're going to get emails from them. You also perhaps want to, after you create your free account, they have a whole section called Cousin Bait. So they're going to give you lots of things and thoughts about sharing your image on Facebook, finding mysteries. Are there any blogs? What's your privacy level? So they have free a really great resource called Cousin Bait after you create your free account that I would encourage you to use. And I had a great experience by using WikiTree on my paternal line. My great-great-grandparents left England and went to Australia. My great-grandfather was the only one who stayed behind, and I never could find what happened to his parents. I looked in all of the English records, the parish registers, and they were just gone. I had no idea what in the world happened to them. It just seemed so weird that they would disappear. The parents and the five people, and my ancestor was the only one left, or I wouldn't be here today, of course. But I put what I knew up on WikiTree, and I was able to connect with a cousin. And she was able to then send me an email and say, I was interested in your homepage about the Johns family friend, Red Ruth. And she descends from John Johns. I descend from William Johns. Different, those are the brothers. So the family left to go mine in the mines of Australia, and they never knew, the people that left Australia and left William behind, that he had descendants that immigrated to America. So I was able to connect with her, and we've shared some wonderful, wonderful resources to each other. So you don't know sometimes if someone left and stayed behind or moved to another continent. How about GeniaNet? Have you ever put your tree on GeniaNet? This is a very big site in France if you have any French relations. It's also really big in Europe. You can have a family tree on here. According to them, they have 8 billion individuals indexed on their site, 1.3 million family trees, 4 million members. It is very Europe and France based. Maybe your ancestors left perhaps Galicia, Poland, things like that, and maybe they settled in France before going to America. So you have no idea if maybe you have some French ancestors out there. So maybe think about uploading your tree to GeniaNet and seeing if you can connect with a cousin. Now you can go into their community section, and you have to pay to be able to search for relatives. But another feature though that is free is you can do a search for members. So I want to look for the line called Levine that is a French connection. So I'm going to put it in. I'm going to say I'm not a robot, and I'm going to submit it, and I get back that this person, A. Levine, has a tree with Levines that are French. I'm able to view his tree. I can send him a message. GeniaNet is really kind that it goes through his tree and says, these are the most common popular names in his tree, and these are the places most common in his tree. So I think this is a neat feature of GeniaNet that people may be not aware of. So you may want to pop into GeniaNet if you think you have any French or maybe people on the continent. Now, Family Search. I'm sure everybody is using Family Search. Most likely you've connected with their one big tree. Here is a fan chart of my tree. And as you can see, I'm very evenly split. Everybody in blue was born in the United States, my mother's line. Everybody in red on the left-hand side was born in the United Kingdom. That is my father's line. But of course, I am using Family Search to find other relatives. So I'm going to log into Family Search. I'm going to use the pull down menu of Family Tree. I'm going to put in a collateral line. I have a great aunt, Almedia Klein, who was in New York, and she was likely born in about 1860. So under the family tree section, I'm going lateral, right? I am going to the sister of my grandfather who stayed back in Iowa and didn't come out to California in the Dust Bowl with my grandparents. And I find that she is listed on here. Someone has plugged her in with some information. So I want to see who did that. Who put her information in there? It wasn't me. Well, I find a person has went out to the cemetery in Iowa and found Almedia's parents' gravestone for George and Nancy. I had never been to Iowa and seen this, but this person was kind enough to go do that. So why would they do that? I think maybe because they're related. So I want to then send a message through Family Search. And I want to say, I see you've added the gravestone of George Klein. I descend from his son Rufus. How do you connect in? Who do you descend? I'd like to connect with you. And we're able to establish a relationship and figure things out. Oftentimes on the lower left there, you can see they list their Hotmail address, their Yahoo address, so I can communicate with them directly instead of having to go through Family Search. If you go into Family Search, go into your account. Again, you want to plug in a photo. You're going to get better results that way. I'm going to go into Settings, and I'm going to go to the Permissions tab, and I want to toggle over because I want my profile to be available. And I want everybody to be able to reach out and connect with me. You control this. This is up to you under the Permissions tab. So you then can, as I said, chat with these people, these potential cousins, through Family Search as your mediator. On your login in the upper right-hand corner, you're going to see a little red mark when it tells you that you have someone that has sent you a message. And these are communications that I have with a gentleman who we are trying to research the Stark family. And I said, I find Ebenezer Combs. Do you know how and where Mary fits into this line and this person? And I have a relationship and we're talking back and forth. And one thing that's really nice is this doesn't ever go away. So I can keep track of who I've reached out with and what we've talked about. And we can, at the bottom, you can share things. You can, when you're talking, you can share a tree, you can share an image file, you can share an emoji. So as you're communicating, you can do that. You also have control. If this isn't a good relationship, you can block this person and never see them again. You can report this person. But I've never had any bad interactions with anybody on here. So definitely use Family Search and see if you connect with people. Also, do you have people that you're following? I want to know who is making updates to Almedia Klein. So anybody that you're researching on your tree, make sure that you go and click on that button and change it to be following. So anytime there's an update, the little bell icon next to your name is going to say, hey, somebody did something, somebody changed something to this person. And then you can reach out and say, hey, cousin, what did you find? How did you find this? Where did you find this? So think about following people that you think you're related to and you want to see how or where they've changed. So I am able to do following, and I get a list of everybody I'm following if I go into my account. So this tells me under my great-great-grandfather down in Australia, Philip Johns, this tells me that someone made a change, when they made a change, and then I can click on and see what they changed. Well, she added an English census from 1841. I want to reach out to this person, Z, and say, why did you do this? How do we connect? Also, Family Search does a nice job of saying, well, you're related to these people. We recommend you follow all of these other deceased people because they're collateral cousins. They're the wife of my uncle. They're the first cousin. They want to perhaps follow those people. So get the most out of your free Family Search account. Now, how about anybody have any military veterans in their family? Maybe someone in the Spanish-American War, World War I, II, Korea, Vietnam, um, any of those. Well, think about going into Fold 3, creating a free account, going into their honor wall. You want to perhaps preserve their service so that younger people know of their sacrifices. We have no one left from World War I, and we have only a few 100,000 people from World War II still alive. And if you don't do it, who is going to? Who's going to honor their service? So my husband's distant cousin, Milton Glanz, was shot and killed over Belgium on a bombing mission in World War II in 1944. And I have another cousin of his who's still alive and wanted me to find out what happened to Milton. She said, I was a young girl. I knew he was killed, but I knew nothing about him. And it took 4 years for his body to be retrieved and interned in the US. So on Fold 3, I've created a memorial to him where I've added photos, newspaper articles, and missing air crewman reports I found on their site that talk and interview with people who were on the bomber that was with him that survived, that talk about what happened to him. So if you don't honor your military ancestors, no one else will. So think about using at least this is free to do. You don't need a Fold 3 account, just a free account to do this, a paid account. So think about honoring your veterans. So here's just a sample of the veterans who, by their remarks on these documents, are Jewish, and perhaps they haven't been honored. So I hope I encourage all of you to go in and create a memorial to your ancestors who served and who sacrificed. So when you create your Fold 3 account, I would encourage you to check that box, allow Fold 3 members to contact me, so that other people who perhaps descend or know or a cousin of that veteran, they can reach out to you. So let's jump over to lost cousins. Do any of your ancestors perhaps made a stopover in England or were born in England, lived there for a while? As you saw, my whole paternal line is English. So I subscribe to this free site called Lost Cousins. He does have a paid feature of it, but his free site aspects are really, really fun and really interesting. The gentleman who runs it does a great job. So I have an account on his site called Lost Cousins, and the way you connect on this site is you add in your blood or direct relatives and you make a link based on the census. So these are the censuses. So if they were here in 1940, you can make a link. If they were in England in 1911 or Wales, you can make a link. Maybe they were in Canada or something like that. And then you click a button that says search, and you can see if you have any cousins who also have uploaded that exact same family from the census. And he has a wonderful newsletter, which I would also encourage you to sign up for. So let's talk a little bit about societies, collections, and databases. So the DAR, the SAR, Jewish Families in the Knowles Collection, and the Weiner Family Jewish Heritage Center. Resources I think are great to find resources for cousins. So if you have not thought about using the DAR because you're not a DAR member, you don't think you are, but maybe like me, my husband married me. I am in the DAR, so my information is in here. Maybe you have the same thing with some of your cousins. You want to go into dar.org, you want to go to genealogy, and you want to go to the descendants database. As I said again, I am not logged in. So I'm going to plug in Cohen. I want to see if maybe there's any other Cohens in their 7.1 million descendants in their database. So when I did, I find Edna, I find Charles, I find Bernard. There were a lot of Cohens listed in there. I can click on the little red icon in the upper right-hand corner, and I can see that Mr. Cohen married into a Helen Goodrich line back in the probably late 1880s. He died in 1926. And you can also click the button on the right to, if you tie into one of these lines, you can then search all of those particular lines. So detailed information usually starts at the 4th generation for privacy concerns, but you may want to think about looking on the DAR site. I also looked and found Cecilia Cohen listed on here, married to Mayors Newell Dubois. So that's what I used when I just plugged in the name Cohen. You can then also, for $20 or $10 for the lineage, $20 for the documentation, or $30 for both, you can download the application that was submitted to the DAR and all of the supporting documents to find more details about that line, maybe where they were living, what census they found them in. So you can get a record copy of the approved membership application, and you get, as I said, supporting documents. Anything less than 100 years old, information is redacted. If you find an ancestor, you may want to use the member number that is the largest, the most recent that I've seen. They are just over 1 million members. My membership number starts with 900,000 or 900,000. So older records were not vetted as thoroughly, but think about maybe downloading these applications to get some information about that cousin. You also have a similar resource called the Sons of the American Revolution membership applications. There's 1.2 million records on 145,000 applications, very similar to the DAR, that you can find the resources that were listed for the person to join the SAR. So if you go out to Ancestry, you put in a keyword of SAR, and you see the membership applications. You click on the 1.2 million records, and we find Inez Cohen Pollock, who was born in 1871 and married Francis D. Pollock. And they are listed there because their son, Franklin, has decided to join the SAR, and we get a detailed listing of the birth, death, and marriage of all of his ancestors. So you may never have thought to use these sites to find your cousins. Has anybody ever used the Knowles collection? This is part of Family Search. If you go into Family Search, you click on Genealogy, then go over to Search for a specific tree, And they have Jews of North America, the British Isles, Europe, South America, the South Pacific, Africa, Orient, and the Middle East. There's about 228,000 British families, 154,000 North American families, 187,000 European families listed on here. So I want to type in Knowles collection as my keyword, and then I plug in a name. This is for the British Isles, and I'm looking for Isaac Lazarus. And I see he's listed there. He was born in England in 1865. He married in 1891, and he died in 1941. These are records that they have pulled from synagogues and cemetery records. I can then click on it, and I can see his tree going forward and backward in time. They have listed who they found as his parents and who they found as his descendants. So maybe I want to reach out to these people who could likely still be alive and doing research. So maybe you haven't thought about or used the Knowles collection. And if you want to know more about it, I just noticed that if you're going to be attending Roots Tech the end of this month, that the gentleman, Todd Knowles, will give a whole demonstration about what and how to use his collection. So if you're thinking of going to Roots Tech, think about signing up for his demonstration on Thursday, the 29th at 2 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. How about this resource in the New England Historic Genealogy Society in Boston? You may never have thought that maybe some of your resources could be used there. They have something called the Weiner Family Jewish Heritage Center at American Ancestors. One of the resources they have is the records for the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society. So these are people that came through Boston and immigrated, and when they got there, they needed some assistance. So the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society was there for them, and they kept records. So we learn about Golda here, who's 40. She's married. She was from Odessa. She was going to her husband, who lived in Chicago. She was traveling with her son Meyer, who was 11. So these are some very interesting records if you have any ancestors who perhaps came through Boston. They also have correspondence for people who sent letters to the society asking what happened to this family who came in from Russia via Glasgow to New York in 1908 and was destined to see her husband in Boston. And then we get the reply back where they say, well, this is what happened to her. This is where she went. So think about looking at the American Ancestors site for Jewish research, because they also have newspapers, the Jewish Times, Jewish Journal, Advocate, Chronicle, Jewish Leader. So we have things like obituaries for Benjamin Bloomfield. We have obituaries for someone dying, and she was listing everybody, and even her great-grandmother is listed on here. We have a marriage that took place in Columbus, Ohio, but was written up in these Boston newspapers. So they have a really robust newspaper collection on this site. It may not be one that you've thought of using. So let's do a few little case studies. So we have the Social Security Death Index online. You may have used it. Joe Biden has a really great site, deathindexes.com. And one feature on here is the death index that's fee-based on Ancestry or free on Family Search. So I'm going to use that to try and find someone. So I'm looking for Boyce Klein on the death index. I know he died when I was in high school, but I wasn't really sure what happened to him. So I find him listed on here, and I knew he lived in Northern California, and his name is a little unusual. It is his first name is his grandmother's maiden name. So he died in 1995 in Sacramento. That's in Northern California. So I know I have the right guy. So I want to view the record. And this death index is going to give me his birth date, where he got his card, where his last residence was, and when he died. And you always should look at the suggested records on the right side that Ancestry lists: the find a grave, the censuses, the death index, but also the applications, claim index, who filed his application after he passed away and told Social Security that he died. Well, it tells me on this his birth date, where he was born, his mother and father, and his notes about other names that perhaps used. And again, the suggested records, we see lots of them, but one of them caught my eye, which is, of course, his obituary. So I want to click on that. And there is the write-up that was written about him. And what does it tell me? Well, it tells me his first wife, his second wife, and all his children, who were listed, of course, in birth order. Now, maybe these ladies have different names. I'm not sure. So I think perhaps I want to look for his son, first of all, Martin, because hopefully his name probably wouldn't have changed. So Martin Boyce Klein is who I want to look for. But when you're looking at obituaries, I want you to keep in mind you want to also look in where someone resided. Maybe they're retired out here in California or Arizona, or maybe they went to Florida, but maybe their obituary is in their hometown in North Carolina where they lived before they moved. So make sure, especially those 1930s or 40s or 50s, you look in both newspapers where they resided for, where you found them in census after census, and where they retired to and maybe passed away. So I want to look for Martin, and on your handout, I've listed a lot of resources to find living people, and I'll show you a little bit about all of these. Ancestry has some great phone directory resources. And when you're using these sites, if you go ahead and want to pay the fee to get more detailed information, I would encourage you to maybe think about creating an email that you only use when you use these sites, so you're not getting tons of spam in your good emails. So maybe think about making an email at Yahoo or Hotmail or Google that you just use when you're doing something like this, because unfortunately, you will perhaps get a lot more email and spam that you want. But I'm going to look at Martin on ussearch.com, and I know his name and I could kind of guess on his age. And this tells me some places that he lived, and then it gives me some people, Andrew, Boyce, and Leslie. Well, Boyce is his father, so I think I have the right person. Now, if I want to pay to get more results, more details, I'm going to have to do that. But I think I'm going to try some other sites first. So I'm going to pop over to whitepages.com. Whitepages gives me even more detailed information, and it tells me Leslie Kathleen, well, that could perhaps could be a wife. Maybe Andrew is a son, something like that. I want to start making a family group sheet on what I find. I want to go out to Family Tree now. And again, I'm not paying for any of this. I'm just looking, and I was able to find actually a complete address. So I sent him a snail mail to be able to connect with him, and we did. Now, on my husband's side, the Schreier family, I have Jacob and Edith, who have 6 children, including Charles. They had a son, Nathan. Edith dies, and Jacob marries Sarah, and they have my husband's grandfather, William. After Jacob dies, Sarah comes here to the US by herself. And eventually, according to family legend, all of those half siblings also came to the US. When William passed away, we didn't know very much about him because he barely knew his father. So maybe I want to see if maybe Charles or Nathan, I want to see if I can find and connect with that line. So I'm going to go to the World War II graph cards, and I find Nathan Schreier in Westchester County, New York, and he has a mother named Lena, and that ties into the information the family gave me. So I have my pedigree or my family group sheet, I have some dates and places I want to put in. I'm going to go out to the 1950 census. I'm going to find Charles, and I'm going to find Nathan. Well, he's 25 in 1950, so he may or may not still be alive, born in 1924, but I'm going to keep looking for him. And Ancestry tells me that Nathan was about the right age to be in World War II, and so I'm pretty sure that I find him there, and he's living in Westchester, New York. I learn more information about him, and that public record index tells me even in the 90s, he was living in Whitestone, New York. So he seems to stay in that region. I popped over to the newspapers and I found an article about him that he was liberated after he was serving in World War II. And the newspaper was kind enough to give me information about a brother who was also in the Pacific and a brother-in-law, Captain Cohen, who was also in the services. And I was able to find a note about his marriage, where he married Esther Eisen. So look at all of these resources. You're going to put your detective hat on, and you're going to use all of these to find what you can. So I go back to White Pages for him. I put in Nathan Schreier in Whitestone, and it tells me he's about 80. There's a gentleman that's 80 plus. That fits right into my timeline. And it tells me that now he's down in Florida. So maybe he retired there. He may also go by Nate. So that's going to gives you some nicknames. And he used to live in Whitestone, but it also tells me he's related to, so he's going to have records associated with Esther and Robin. Well, I know Esther is his wife, so maybe Robin is his daughter, who maybe could be alive and could still be a little younger. So I'm going to keep searching and go back to the newspapers, and I find a obituary for that sister Anne who passed away. And I believe I have the right person because she lists her devoted brother, Nathan, and his wife in her obituary down in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. So I find his address there in Florida, but unfortunately I find his obituary. So I know my search for Nathan probably is not going to work. I maybe need to then go find Robin. So I go out to US Search and I'm looking for Robin Schreier. And what do I find? Well, she's associated with Nathan and Esther. So I'm pretty sure I have the right Robin. But then I also see she's associated with some other people. And it looks like maybe these are relatives, meaning maybe this is her husband and maybe her children. So this is maybe a new name that I want to look for. So went out to Google and I said, Google, find everything you can about Robin Elise Schreier Scary. And luckily, she was married, and the New York Times covered her wedding. And in big bold print, she was the daughter of Mr. and Mrs. Nathan Schreier of Whitestone, Long Island, or West Queens. So I know this is the right person. And it talks about her education. So obviously, she's a very educated lady. Perhaps she has a career. And so perhaps I want to then go to LinkedIn. And I was able to find her on LinkedIn, and I can message her, or I can see if I can find more information about her. So when I send her a message, I want to say, Robin, my husband's grandfather was William Schreier, and I think yours was Charles, his half brother. I'd like to share more information about Jacob and when he immigrated from Austria. Would you be interested in sharing information with the family? So this is how we connected. Have you ever heard of legacy.com? These are a good source of obituaries, especially more recent obituaries, I find. So I plugged in the name of my mom in these obituary on legacy.com. She died about 3 years ago, and I'm able to find her obituary that I wrote and put in the newspaper. Now, this is a very small hometown newspaper. It's not on any of the major sites anywhere, but it is listed on legacy.com. So think about using this site if you want to pick up and find cousins and find information about their descendants in obituaries. Now, hopefully everybody is using online cemetery records for all of their genealogy research. Find a Grave, Deceased Online, interment.net, all of these, of course, are great resources, but let's use them to find a cousin. So Find a Grave, I'm looking for William Doane Campbell. He is a collateral shirt tail line, I think married into the family that I found, and I want to see if I can find one of his descendants. So I was able to find him on Find a Grave, and this is the right guy. It sounds, based on my research, he died out here in LA County. But because Find a Grave is owned by Ancestry, when you go into Find a Grave now, you're going to get links on the right side that say, well, we've also found some records on Ancestry about him that you might want to pop out and see. So I did, and someone had a tree on Ancestry for this William Doane Cohen, and this person had listed a lot of information about, and so I wanted to perhaps contact this tree owner and ask about him and see if we could share information. So I sent this person an email through Ancestry, but she hadn't signed in 3 to 4 months, and I didn't get anything back. So I want to see if maybe I can contact her another way. Maybe she's not very active on Ancestry. So I'm going to go back out to those sites and I'm going to look up William D. Campbell, and I find he's related with Allison Campbell. Well, that perhaps is the A. Campbell that is listed on the Ancestry tree. And he's listed with all these other Campbells. But I looked up on Facebook, which has 1 billion people listed on there, and I'm going to do a search for Allison Campbell. She's a little unusual that she spells Allison with one name, and I was able to connect with message with her because she also descends from the same great-grandparents that I do. And so we have a private Facebook group with 43 of my cousins. We all descend from this couple, and this is a picture of their 50th wedding anniversary. And my cousin shared this and created this group, and we share information with each other, what happens to all of these descendants of this couple. So think about maybe creating a private Facebook group. How about unknown photo sites? Have you ever used any of these to find any ancestors and cousins and things like that? I'm just going to show you a couple of them. We have deadfred.com. So someone goes to a garage sale, they go to an antique store, maybe they find some photos and they're not their family, but they don't want them to go to waste, so they plug them in Dead Fred. So I did a search for the Cohens just to see what was out there. So here is a list of some Cohens that were listed on these sites. Wouldn't it be wonderful if you descend from little Barbara Cohen over there from Portland, Maine? So you want to see and find if somebody has found a photo. You can also search by location. Maybe your family was settling in Bergen, New Jersey back in the 50s, and maybe someone then went out and found some photos at a store. So here are some lovely photos. And wouldn't you, if are relatives of the, don't want to abuse this name, but Skobohatsky. I'm not sure how, it's a very challenging last name there from Lodi, New Jersey. But look at their wonderful wedding photos that are listed of there, Alfred Schmidt. And these are all from Bergen County, New Jersey. So think about using this site and see if you can find some photos and connect with somebody. There's a site called ancientfaces.com, very similar, where people list photos. Well, this is the photo taken before Frederick Owen went off to World War I. He's sitting next to his mother, Sarah, and among his family members. He died in France, and someone was kind enough to create a little biography of him. So see if you can find somebody who posted family photos. Ancient Faces, you can also create and share memories. So here's Riva, who was kind enough to do a little biography of her from Poland and where she lived and where she resided. So I think this is a fun site to use also. On your handout, I've listed some other sites that you can perhaps find photos from Digital Public Library, Flickr, Library of Congress, Massachusetts Memories, the New York Public Library, Ohio, and Denver. All of these places are great places to see if you can find photos. So lastly, we're going to talk about DNA, which of course is the revolutionary, right? We have connected with so many people using DNA. Now, when I'm searching my maternal line, I always use my mom because I got her to test before she passed, because she's a generation older than me. So there's going to be more DNA connected with her line instead of me. So on Ancestry, if you've done the test, and they have changed the rules though recently, and now you must have a paid subscription to use the through lines that you didn't have to before. So if you do have a paid subscription and you want to try and connect some of those through lines, these are people who also have a tree at least 5 generations back who connect with you based on the ancestry search. So I want to see if I can find someone related on my mom's side to our Irish ancestor, Peter Coleman. So when I go into through lines, there's my mom. She descends from Peter, but I want to look at her great grandfather James and his her brother Michael and his sister Ellen and see the different matches. So through lines for Peter has an Ellen, and according to ancestry and according to these trees, these are people that also descend. So I want to perhaps reach out to HA and MA and see if they know in Ireland where this family is from. So I want to send a message to MA, but MA doesn't have a public tree. Their tree is private. So when I connect with MA, I can still connect with them and message them. I say, according to Ancestry, we're likely third cousins. And the Ancestry says, they know their common ancestor, but your tree is private. So I can't really share information. Do you think you could make your tree available to me to be able to look at it and connect? So glad to meet you, cousin. Have you tested with 23andMe perhaps? Well, again, just like Ancestry, you want to make your profile as robust as possible so that people can see where you connect. So I've listed where my maternal and paternal grandparents were born. My paternal grandparents were all from England. I put in a lot of different places that are associated with my family and lots of surnames. I connected with this cousin here. Well, this person's maternal line is Wisconsin, which is close, but not the same. And their paternal line is Wisconsin. So I know I don't connect that way. I likely connect maternally with them. But on 23andMe, you can create a hyperlink with a tree that you have. So that if you have a tree on Ancestry, you can go in and plug in the link so that they can look at your ancestry tree. But this person didn't do that. So I don't know where we connect. So when I send something to this person, I want to say, you know what, we're likely second cousins, and maybe I know how we're related, but you don't have a tree. Do you think you could perhaps put one. I'll be more than happy to show you how to plug in that tree, and I hope that we can connect. So on another aspect of 23andMe, this little tree you see on the right here, you're the only person that will ever see that tree unless you invite others to view it. So on 23andMe, you click on Family Tree, you can invite 5 other people to see this tree. So maybe you connect with someone named Linda and you plugged her in on the tree. And when you connect with Linda, she can tell you who her father is and who her grandfather is and who her great-grandfather is. So this is a part of 23andMe. I don't think everybody has really used too much, but think about using that part of 23andMe. Now, if you've taken a test at Ancestry or 23andMe, did you realize that you can download the raw data and transfer it for free to MyHeritage, Family Tree DNA, and Living DNA? So you're expanding your research by 15 million people who may not have their tree on Ancestry or 23andMe. So make sure you think about doing that. Just go out to Google, how do I download my raw DNA? Or go to Ancestry 23andMe and their help. They're going to tell you how to download it and how to upload it. Because as they say, you want to fish in every pond. If you're on 23andMe and your cousin is on MyHeritage, you're never going to meet unless you put that bait out there. So MyHeritage for my mom, my DNA matches. There's me and there's my mom. So I know my mom is my mom. And I'll give you a little insight that my brother and sister are adopted. And 10 years after my brother was adopted, my mother came up pregnant with me, surprisingly. And she didn't think at 42 she would be having a child, but she did. So when I was little, though, I knew they told me my brother and sister adopted. And in my back of my mind, I always kind of wondered, even though I have my dad's cowlick and my dad's blue eyes and my mom's nose, gosh, are they really my parents? Well, I did a DNA test and it confirmed that my mom was my mom. And when I showed this to her, she just laughed and said, "Of course you're my child." But anyways, so on MyHeritage, they have something called the theory of family relativity, where you can click on DNA matches and they're going to give a theory on how you're connected to your matches. And about a week ago, they put out a whole bunch of new theories of family relativity. They're always updating this. So we have a cousin that is listed here, and they're going to give a theory. And they're going to say, well, you guys both descend from James and Jenny Klein. This person descends from Rufus, and this person descends from Nelson, likely second cousin once removed. That's their theory. And they often give you a few different theories on how you're connected, and you confirm which one you think is correct. So I want to say, hello, cousin. You have the same great grandparents, I think, in your tree, and I have photos and information I'd like to share. Is it correct that you descend from Nelson Klein? You also, after you do this with MyHeritage, you're going to get DNA connections. So I get every week or so, I get a new DNA match, and they will give little details like this DNA match for me on the left for a lady who's over 90, who's managed by someone named Virginia, who shares 38 centimorgans with me. And one of her ancestral common places is Ireland. So maybe she connects with me on my Irish line. Or on the right here, I got a connection for my husband. And as you can see, some of these connections are quite large, 70 centimorgans, 68 centimorgans. So I want to see how they connect with him. And as you can see, the gentleman on top is from Bulgaria. The gentleman on the bottom is from Israel. So you will get matches from all over the country on MyHeritage. Have you connected and put your tree into Family Tree DNA from Ancestry or 23andMe? Again, upload your tree and see what you connect with. So here is some connections that I have, and I can email them directly. I can make notes about my connection. If they have a tree, I can view it. And again, this person was kind enough to put as much information as possible. He says, this is my early known ancestor. These are my surnames. And when I looked at that, I said, oh, I have Blakesleys and Howard. So I knew likely where we were connected. More is good. More is better. You want to put as much as you can out there to connect. How about Living DNA? Have you uploaded your tree to Living DNA? This is a good way to get, for me anyways, my resource, my cousins across the pond in England and Ireland and Wales and Scotland and Australia and Canada. And again, you can upload for free. So you can click on family matching and you can ask that person, you administer a test with about 55 centimorgans in living DNA. Thinks we're third to fifth cousins. I'd like to see where we connect. Maybe you're through my John's Cohen line, John's Audrey's line, who are Cornish. Would you be willing to help me figure that out? And one nice aspect of living DNA is if you do have English ancestors, you can spend about $28 more, and they will then give you detailed resources on which actual county in England that you're from, which according to them, and this is pretty accurate, when I uploaded mine, it said, according to them, I am 52% Cornish, which makes sense. My father is 100% Cornish. So, but East Anglia is 15%. Well, that's likely my mom's line, and 11% is Ireland. So that's likely my mom's line. So if you're doing any research and you have any English, the living DNA tack on for $28 can be really helpful. So how are you communicating with these cousins that you're finding? You want to, of course, share more information about your family. You want to tell them who your common ancestor is you think you share. You want to perhaps even feel them out. Are they even interested in genealogy? Have they seen those ads that talk about being Scottish than actually being German? If you don't get good feedbacks, sometimes just keep a spreadsheet and keep track, and maybe reach out to them, and 6 months later, they may be more interested. I have an Excel sheet where I keep track of who I contacted, what medium I used. Did I use Facebook? Did I use email? Did I use snail mail? Keep track of how you research them. Maybe you never got a reply. Maybe try a different resource. Make sure you don't give them everything. Don't give them your whole 50 years of research. You want to be really specific in your questions. Do you happen to know who the parents are? Do you have any family documents or photos that you didn't know who they were? Maybe I can help you find out. Would they be interested in taking a DNA test? Confirm, of course, that you would pay for it. And I also like to, when I talk about DNA, I like to tell them that I can make them completely anonymous. Their name will not be associated with. I will give them a number, and also explain that it is just a simple cheek swab or a spit test. People get squeamish, and tell them it has nothing to do with blood or anything like that. Be truthful, be honest, be polite, be appreciative of them sharing anything with you. Offer your email address first. Offer small bites of information. Do you have a census page? Do you have a family letter? Do you have a document? Perhaps make a copy and include it and pique their interest. If you send them a letter, send them a self-addressed stamped envelope. So lastly, these are some photos that I have received from my cousin. On the upper left, those are my Australian ancestors in the 1890s. And the lower left is that great-grandfather William, who happened to stay behind in England and didn't go to Australia. So I'm still here today. In the center, those are some maternal ancestors that I never knew, I never was able to have photos of, that I got. And the upper right is the father of my great-grandfather, and the lower right is Jenny at a very young age. All of these I got from cousins. I didn't have these. So thank you so very much for your time today. I hope I've given you some ideas on how to reach out and stalk and bait your cousins. If you have any follow-up questions, please feel free to email me afterwards. So thank you for your time today.
Oh, don't go anywhere. Christine, can you still hear us pretty well? Oh, no. Christine.
She's muted.
Let's see.
There we go. There we go. Sorry about that. Just clicked the wrong button.
We're glad you're still here. I don't know if you saw the our actual attendees applauding you, and well, I'll get our I'll see if I can get our virtual folks here on gallery view. There we go. And we, of course, Christine indicated she'd be happy to answer questions. Christine did comment about the handout. And for our members in TJGS, it's already on our website. And I'll send you a link. Actually, Ava will send you a link to the recording as well as to the handout. I don't know about you, but I feel like I've got so much homework to do, so many things that I was totally unaware of with all of these sites that I'm on. I did also want to mention for those of you who are in our area, that if you go to the Family History Library, which is not too far from here in Chapel Hill, I know there's one also in Cary. that you have free access if you go to those local libraries to Fold 3. And of course, Family Search is free from home, but they have, every one of those libraries has free access. So if you're trying to save money, Christine certainly shared a wonderful number of resources like that. And they also, if you go to the Family History Library and you're looking for records, instead of having to travel to Salt Lake to get records now, you can just do it right from your Family History Library, your local one. Steve, did you want to add something as well?
No, go ahead. I'll wait till you're finished.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and open up the floor to questions as well as observations, and perhaps some of you have a cousin story as well. Steve, did you want, oh, Mike, Mike, I think the microphone is right above our screen, and Christine, you let me know if you can't hear us and I'll repeat the question.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, well, first of all, I finally realized that Christine Cohen and Krista Cowan are not the same person.
No, no. Krista Cowan and Christine Cohen are different people.
My question is, what percentage of the cousins that you have attempted to contact actually responded?
I'd say about a third, probably a good third.
That's
It's not 100%. Unfortunately, a lot of people take ancestry tests and go, oh, I'm 50% German and 50% Irish. Okay, I'm gone. And they never contact me back again. But just yesterday, I found a hint on one of my trees, and it was for a lady who put an image from one of our shared families. And she shared that image in 2018, but all of a sudden it popped up on my hints to the other day. And I sent her an email, and she sent me just a huge email. She is so excited to connect with me. So don't be surprised. Sometimes it just may take time. And I said, you may want to try different resources. Don't just do message through Ancestry and stop. Think about trying Family Search, about Facebook, about Twitter, uh, some of those living people sites, that kind of thing. You don't know what medium people are on, so don't just try one avenue, try many.
We also have a question in chat, Christine. Is the highest collection only for people who came through Boston? She writes, my great-grandmother was helped by Highest and came through Seattle.
I believe it is. I have not researched it too thoroughly because my husband's ancestors came through New York. But I know that resource is only through for Boston, but I would definitely check out the site and see what they have. You could also go to, I don't know if anybody has, I'll put this in the chat. Has anybody used Archive Grid? If you go out to Archive Grid and you plug in highest collection, and you may see the highest collection for uh, the people who came through Seattle may be housed at the Historical Society of Seattle, or maybe housed at a museum in Seattle. So highest may be housed in different places. So go to Archive Grid, type in highest, and see where maybe some of their other collections are located.
Okay, I'm just demonstrating that as you speak. It's actually archivegrid.com.
Mm-hmm. And that's going to be tells you where a historical society, an archive, a university, who houses these that you may not ever know about or see.
Question.
Okay, David has a question. David Zendels.
I've been using Ancestry probably 20 years or more, and I have over 800 photos and documents, and I use JetCom and put it on MyHeritage, but none of the documents get transferred, so
Right. Yeah, you have to upload them
one
manually.
at a time, huh?
Yep, yep. Because I think it's a little too much for the GEDCOM cannot support
Right.
that. They can only support metadata that's, not textual, that kind of thing.
Okay, no simple solution. Thank you.
And I saw someone was asking about the MyHeritage DNA tools. Yes, MyHeritage, you can also use many, many tools if you upload to their site. You don't need to pay for a lot of the tools. I think it's $20 if you want every single DNA tool, but I have not paid for any of that. And when I go to MyHeritage and I look on my DNA, I am able to see the Send More and Explainer, the chromosome browser, autocusters, and ethnicity map are all included for free in MyHeritage by uploading your DNA.
Okay. Christine, how many cousins do you have?
Well, first cousins I have around 70. My maternal line was quite prolific that way. But on my paternal line, I have very few. So, but I have probably 6,000 or 7,000 people in my tree.
And what about on your husband's side?
Oh, he doesn't have that many cousins. He has a lot of DNA cousins, though, because of being Jewish, of course. You're going to have a lot of DNA cousins. He has way more than I do, that's for sure.
I wanted to mention a source that I found helpful in finding second and third cousins, and that's it's primarily a Jewish site. It's the Yad Vashem
Right.
site, because anybody who provided a page of testimony for a family member who perished in the Holocaust has their name. It's not always easy to figure out how to contact them, but very often if you left a page of testimony for somebody, they're a brother, a sister, a mother, a father, or a cousin, or a good friend. And again, that site was never intended for genealogical research, but you can also search on Yad Vashem based on the submitter's name. So if you know, for example, that Deborah Long submitted all of these pages of testimony, and you can get in touch with Deborah Long, then you might find all of these other family members who you didn't even know existed there. So that's another site, again, more for people who are looking for Jewish family members. Who else? We have a lot of people. We have, by the way, just so you know, Christine, if you keep track of numbers, we have 39 people
Yay.
with us today, both in person and virtual. I think that says something. I personally am going to try that Dead Fred site. That got a big laugh here, but I think I'm not sure if anybody else knew about that site, but I thought that was wonderful. Barbara?
We've had a lot of success using a Jewish Gen database called Jewish Online Worldwide Burial Registry, which is easy to use inside Jewish Gen. Sometimes you have to register, but you don't necessarily have to pay.
Let's see if I can get that
And
site.
there are over 3 million entries on that website, Jewish
Wow.
Online World. And,
Wow.
and Barbara and I submit data from the Jewish cemetery in Raleigh for that
Oh, yeah.
website.
So that would be under
It's Joe, if you go to
here,
Joe Bob.
right here.
J-
You can actually go there directly, but you can go through Jewish Gen as well.
Right.
And yeah, I was surprised to find quite a number of
It says 4.2 million. I was wrong.
4.2 million records. And some of them are linked to gravestones
Right, we submit pictures of the
with pictures,
gravestone
yeah.
and transcription of the gravestone into English.
Yep.
And information on well, I get information from the obituaries and put down if it's on the obituary, the parents' names and where they were born and where they died. And as much information as I can from the obituary on that, so it's very informative.
Which you put in hot links to the obituaries.
Right. I don't know if they're.
And they have a great newsletter too, Jewish Gen. If you don't subscribe to it, I do. They always give great resources on there too.
They also have a plaques database. They have asked for synagogues all over the world to submit their memorial plaques.
What, Barbara, for our friends who might not know what a memorial plaque is, can you explain a little bit about the difference between a memorial plaque and, let's say, a gravestone?
There's a custom in a lot of synagogues to put a plaque up in memory of parents or children who have died. And they're hung on the synagogue wall. And they have usually, in the old days, they just had the death date, but today they tend to have the birth and the death dates.
It's also parents. It says Ben or Bod,
Right.
Let's see.
so you can get that helps with genealogy. Yeah.
I do that too for the synagogues.
So what's happening with some synagogues that are merging or closing, hopefully those plaques are being
Yeah.
preserved in some way or
They're
not thrown away.
Right, yeah, we get plaques from synagogues that have closed. and they're in
So
Beth
you're
Meyer
sending
Synagogue.
them
Huh?
to Beth, to Beth,
Yeah,
they just call and say, we want to.
no, I think we call them and they send it to us,
Wow.
and so.
We
store
were
them.
asked by
That's
the
good.
synagogue in Wilson, North Carolina, that closed to house their memorial plaques. So their memorial plaques are at Temple Beth Or in Raleigh.
Are they stored away or are they displayed?
No, they're on the wall.
That's great.
That's good.
Have they ever been digitized? I mean,
They should.
Well,
We
this
take-
way,
Yeah, I take pictures of each individual plaque, and so it's on a spreadsheet, so you can search by name.
because we'll run out of wall eventually.
Oh,
Yeah.
And these, actually, the people that paid, the family members paid for these,
Yes.
they paid
Yeah,
back in the seventies and eighties, they paid like $100 and some dollars.
they're more like $300 now.
Today's money, some of these were expensive. I mean, it's nice that we're not throwing these away or putting.
And volunteers are needed. There's actually an effort in Europe for all of the Jewish cemeteries to be indexed. I just finished working with some volunteers on a Jewish cemetery in Budapest. And so we had the cemetery keepers log. And so, we've typed up all of the names and those are gonna go on Jewish Gen. I don't know if anybody's gonna take pictures, but wouldn't that be wonderful to be able to see that? So I think one of the things you learn from Christine is that everything's in the settings. That's where the gold is. You have to press on all of these, click on all of these buttons to find all of these wonderful resources that like Family Connect and some of these other settings that in resources that you're already using. That's a big help. And also Christine, I don't know if you have chat on, but you're getting some accolades in chat as well. Just wanted to
Yep.
make sure that you saw
Oh
that.
yeah, I have my shout out. So thank you so very much. I hope I've given you some ideas, some thoughts. Everybody spent the pandemic at home working on their families, but try and reach out. And like I said, I had a cousin who attended conferences and went to libraries, and it's awesome to have someone with you and not be so isolated, just looking at your computer by yourself all the time doing research, going out and doing things together as a group, as a family. Create a family Facebook group that's private. No one else can join. When my great aunt passed away, we were able to put up her obituary and her photo, and we shared memories of her on our family Facebook page. So we're all over the country, but at least we were able to share her passing and celebrate her life. So, and like I said, do you have any military memorials? My husband's distant cousin was so excited for me to share that. She never knew what had happened to her cousin, to be able to read what happened to him in the papers and in those crewman reports, and to be able to go to his stone in Long Island and celebrate his life and his sacrifice. So think about doing that. So I think everyone should do that because we don't have very many of those gentlemen left from World War II. So I think that's important.
Any other questions from our virtual attendees or the ones who are sitting around the table with me? I know we're going to sit in kibitz and talk about you after you've gone, Christine, but I promise to report back.
Okay, well, thank you so very much for your time. It was lovely to see you all again. I wish you the best of health and wealth, and perhaps we'll do this again sometime soon.
I bet we will. Thanks so much, Christine.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
We're gonna keep Zoom on and use this as an opportunity to kibitz. I want to remind the folks who are with us virtually that if you've got questions that you'd like to ask, this is still a good time to do it. And you can always email me. I'm on our website, or go to our website. I'm at debbietheteacher@gmail.com. I think a lot of you know. Who would like to perhaps share a story or a comment about searching for cousins? I know Steve and I were talking. I don't have any first cousins, so I'm really happy to find second cousins and third cousins. For me, that's
I
a
have
thrill.
very few first cousins, but I wrote snail mail in hand to every one of them when I did it.
Yeah.
And 2 of the 4 wrote back, or when they contacted back, said, we would never have responded to this had you not written a letter.
Really?
Yeah, I think people just think everyone is
Suspicious.
reaching into their pocket when one of these letters arrive, and
Yeah.
Suspicious.
one of them sent back a treasure trove of of photographs of my mother from the time she was 3 years old.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, you could tell he ripped them out of the family album because he just didn't see the use of them anymore, but a big thick envelope came.
Were these were cousins you reached out to?
Yes,
And were they are they your first cousin?
they were adoptive, they were biological first cousins. I'm adopted.
You're adopted, but they're your biological first cousins.
Correct.
You can read about it in his book.
Yes, please.
He's written a book
Oh.
about his experience.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I want to talk to you about it afterwards. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, I just, first meeting I've ever come to, I'm delighted to be here. but
Glad to
A
have you.
couple of experiences I've had very recently, which, some good and not so great. I had, on my father's side, I was one of 11 first cousins, not 80, but 11. On my mother's side, I have only one first cousin. My mother had two siblings, one child among them, and I have a brother. Anyway, the 11 first cousins, and I'm an old man, so not so surprising. There's only three of us still alive, my being one of them. Only one of the other two is somebody I can even talk to. The other one is not functioning. So that's about gone. Two of my first cousins on my father's side died within a day of each other. They were sisters. I suspect the second one may have done herself in just this past few months ago. On my mother's side, I had the name of this first cousin who is quite a bit younger than I and was the product of a late marriage of my uncle, who's younger than my mother, but still late marriage. And his first of three marriages, it turned out, the only child he had. And this person I knew existed. When he was a kid, his father would ship him off to my brother's household in the summer for a month. Because when he was divorced, his wife took the child in the winter and most of the year. And my uncle's name was Steinman, last name Steinman. When I went to France, where I knew he was living back 50 years ago, I went to look for him and I knew his address, but I did not know he was going by his mother's name. Never found him. But I knew they existed anyway. I just recently found out how to reach him, and I had about a half-hour conversation with him. I'm not sure we have very much in common at all, but I'm interested in him. And one of his daughters is a brilliant MIT graduate who has started her own startup in San Francisco and is already wealthy at the age of 30 or 35. So maybe somebody to keep in touch with. Anyway, that's my story that I might contribute.
I know David just got a possible lead.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to follow that
Yeah.
up yet.
You know, I had
It's my mother's maiden name.
yeah, somebody reached out to me and asked me if I knew David. She had found me and David on our website, the Triangle website.
Yeah.
She said, but I don't know how to get in touch with David. And not knowing, again, being a little suspicious, I said, David, you reach out if
Yeah.
you want to. Okay, so I found that fascinating because I've had those, and you've helped me in the opposite way. You helped me find a long lost cousin in Brazil, who I finally met last year in Hungary. So you just never know. These connections are sometimes so serendipitous, aren't they? I had an odd experience with a friend I'm helping who wants to know more about his father's Holocaust history. And I said, are you interested in your family tree? He said, no. All right. I just want to know about my father. I said, well, you can take your dad out of his family, but you can't take the family out of your dad. And that's my thinking, that you have to understand a person, even part of a person, you have to understand their background. I said, so give me permission to root around a little bit. Well, with me, there's no little bit, because what I do borders, it's not an obsession, it's pathological, you know? So I'm really digging around in there, and I found that he had a branch of the tree, of his family tree, an uncle who came over in 1913, and he's got all of these cousins over there. And I know those cousins are sitting on a treasure trove of photos because they posted some of them on Ancestry. So I go back to my friend, he says, I don't want to know them. I don't want to contact them. I said, but they're sitting on treasure. I said, they're sitting, he said, I have too many cousins. And that just blew me away. Because I would do anything for a second, third, or fourth cousin, right? So that was kind of not a reaction I expected. I think over time, I will convince him of the error of his ways. But right now, he doesn't want to reach out to those cousins. And I said, I'll be your intermediary. He says, no, do not let them know I exist. And then he's got too many cousins in a family that is more immediate cousins there were 6 siblings who went through the Holocaust. 4 of them survived, came to the United States and had a lot of babies. And he doesn't talk to any of those cousins because he remembers them fighting all the time. I said, that's what Jewish families do. I remember listening to my parents and their friends in the basement of our home, yelling at each other at the top of their lungs, the Ukrainians were the worst. What do you mean they were the worst? Did you know the Poles? And they would argue about just anything and everything. I said, he said, I can't bring that back into my life. Doesn't want to know the cousins. I said, they don't know you, so maybe it would work out okay. You could start from that.
I'm sure, I'm not sure that this would work, but I think what you were asking earlier was if you can upload photos that you have on Ancestry to MyHeritage.
Right.
I don't know if this would work, but I have Family Tree Maker, which syncs with Ancestry, and it does, take every photo.
That's what I had that, I started with that.
Okay,
too.
so I'm wondering, I don't know if this would work because I've never tried, if you then can, because that does also sync with MyHeritage. I wonder if you can do it. I don't know if that would work.
That's a
Just
good,
an
I think it
idea.
would, I bet it would.
But if you can go then from Family Tree Maker to MyHeritage, I don't know, just an idea.
There's way too many documents and pictures to do it one at a time. I have like
Yeah.
No, that's why
830 documents.
what she's saying though would do it automatically.
Do a bulk load.
If it would do it, I don't know.
What a
Try.
great idea.
But I do have a story, a little bit of a story. Which, I mean, it's like, where do you get your sources? And this was such a weird one, but I was researching my Graver, which is my paternal line, and found some distant cousins of my dad's, and they were all from Galicia. But one branch sort of moved around a little bit and went to Germany and whatnot, but one brother went to England, and this was in like 19 teens, went to England. And then I found out, doing a search on some of these names, I literally just did a Google search, and I found out one of my relatives was in the Kindertransport. And the only reason I found out was a woman in England did her PhD dissertation on the effects of the Kindertransport and how, while we look at it as being like so successful, which the people lived, that there really were so many issues with how these children were raised. And anyway, his name was mentioned. And so I had no idea. So I looked it up and everything matched that she had written. So she had done this years ago and had interviewed some of the family members. And through that, I was able to find his daughter who lives in England. She was on Ancestry also, and she wrote me like 2 months ago, wrote me a letter and found out some information. So it was just like so random that I found this, but then also did the Facebook stalking too, where I was able to look her up.
I think that was interesting. Facebook and LinkedIn. I heard a couple people murmur, I hadn't thought of that,
Facebook is amazing. And sometimes I feel almost like guilty because I'm like stalking them, but some people just have everything public and you can just go through and read and see photos that they've posted of their parents and grandparents. And if it's public, I take it and put it on my tree.
I see, thank you for that, Michelle. Miriam, you wanted to make an observation. Are you on? I think you're unmuted. Yeah, you're good to go.
Okay, yeah, I found when I was cleaning up a storage unit, box that it said testimony on it, and it had like 200 pages of onion skin writing that I think is Polish. My parents were both Holocaust survivors, both born and raised in Poland. So I want to find someone that can at least maybe translate a first few pages and see what it is.
Okay, well, we've got a couple sites for you, don't we? I would start with let's go to Jewish Gen. It depends on how much detail you want. I mean, obviously you can go to somebody private to do it, but on a Jewish Gen, if you can, I hope you can see my screen. There
Yeah, I can.
is a ViewMate. Let's see, did I pass it already? Connect, there we go, ViewMate.
Okay.
Here.
Oh, ViewMate, okay.
Okay, and then there are directions here for uploading. I would say just do a page at a time.
Right.
And see what kind of response you get. There's no charge for that, and they're very comprehensive translations. And then another place that I like for kind of a quick and dirty translation is to go to Facebook. There are any number of volunteer sites for translation. The one I use is Genealogical Translations. I've had some recent success. Let's see, let me go to Genealogical. I have to be able to spell, right? There it is, Genealogical Translations. And they have some rules on this site about how they want you to post things. So you want to make sure that you follow the rules. This lady is not following the rules. I can see that right now. So she's probably not going to get a good response. This person is, you have to put down, for example, the language it's in to the language you want, whatever information you have about the document. And then usually within, I would say 24 hours or so, you get a response. And Mike Mike Calt, who's sitting here, did a presentation for us. His presentation is also on our website on a lot of free translation sites. And he's our expert on basically translation sites, right, Mike?
Yeah, but I forgot what they were.
Okay, and that's why we have, that's because he forgot, we have that information online for you too.
And Miriam, because it says testimony on the box or the folder, I'm wondering if it was submitted to Yad Vashem. And if you went to Yad Vashem, you might find.
Yeah, that's interesting. Definitely the word testimony was in my mother's handwriting, and it was in some old beat up US Postal Service priority box that I had literally never seen after going through everything. So yeah. And
It could also be testimony for compensation and reparations as well.
yes, so I did do stuff related to that Swiss claim, but she wrote this, I think, ahead of that. So it'd be interesting because my mother did like to write. So, and I may be going to Israel, and that was my second question would be, and it's not going to be for a few months, how best to prepare and take certain things. So if I go to Yad Vashem, then I can actually do a little bit more research. I have more information on my mother than on my father. So.
Well, they have a library set aside from the museum and the inside and outside museum. It's when I was there last, they have things at the Yad Vashem library that are not accessible online. So you should bring your family tree with you, names, dates, places of origin, and bring a portable bed with you because you will be there all day. At least one of the days that you're planning on being at Yad Vashem will be consumed by research because this library, again, you can't get to the library any other way except to go there.
Oh,
So,
interesting. All right.
They have online written testimonies that have not been digitized. They have visual testimonies that have not been digitized yet, or at least not the last time I checked.
That's great. And my dad did do with the Shoah Foundation. So I have a video of him. My mother couldn't do it, but he did it. And it's like 2 hours long. I'm so glad that I have that.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Miriam. I'd be happy to talk with you privately since my mother was a Polish survivor as well. And I've done a lot of research with
that's great. Much appreciated. I thank you all.
Join us. Come and join us. Andrea, you've had your hand up for a while. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I wanted to say something about the speaker first. Her level of organization and her persistency really, really impressed me. And I would never, all that. My record keeping is beyond doing what she did. But I was also impressed with she kept trying because I've had moderate success with some cousins. But I do want to introduce my cousin, my distant cousin who's on the line, who I just spoke with for the first time this morning. And Claudia Cohen is dialing in from Denmark. And we're actually not distant cousins, we're second cousins. Her father and my mother are first cousins. And, but due to things that happen in families, this was the first time we met. And also, Claudia's originally from Mexico City. So do you want to say anything?
Oh, yeah, well, first, thank you for reaching out. Actually, I feel very, very distant from my paternal family. So I just, it's a coincidence. I never really planned to dig more into my paternal family because we are kind of not wanted. So I felt really flattered that you wanted to connect and to read and to find a bit more about. I did not mention my father died a long time ago in 1992. So anything that I would like to know about him, it's unavailable because I don't talk to my family, my paternal family, not because I don't want to. So it's nice to have Andrea as the link to that digging, because there are many things of me that I really cannot explain, things that I learned maybe when I was little. And like, this is a funny one that I really like. Now you said like Jewish families fight, and I'm married to a Dane, and they're very rational. And it seems like I'm the only one screaming in this house. So it's really nice to hear that I'm not alone in the screaming part. And another part, funny, it's like Morton, my husband, says that the cleaning day is Saturdays. And I always say, like, there's no way I'm going to clean on a Saturday. It's weekend. And I say it out of ignorance. I say it because I really mean it, but I don't know where it comes from. So it's very funny to start piecing things that maybe are in my DNA, and I just like, they come just automatically out of my mouth. There are many things that it's such a puzzle. So I hope to start understanding what this puzzle is about. Yeah.
Excellent.
Thank you, Claudia, and thank you, Andrea, for bringing your cousin to this meeting. I know that feeling of excitement, of discovery, and also of such gratitude. It's so gratifying that somebody on the other end is so happy that you reached out.
Yeah, and
You don't
thank you
always
for
get that
answering.
response, so.
Thanks.
Right.
Very happy.
Anybody else?
I just want to say that I discovered cousins who were from my grandmother and grandfather's ancestral town. But it wasn't just that I discovered cousins. We didn't actually know that that branch of the family had survived the Holocaust. We always believed. My grandmother lost touch with them in the late 30s. And we assumed that they were all murdered because in the town where they lived, almost 4,000 Jews were taken out to a mass grave, shot, and buried there. And so our assumption was always that we had no cousins on that side. And I discovered these wonderful, delightful cousins, many of whom were by now in the United States. Some in Israel, not too many. So it wasn't just the discovery of that there was a random second cousin somewhere, but that an entire branch of the family survived. And the way they survived is that they went east. They went to Siberia and stayed there until 45 or 46, and then came back to Belarus. But you know, I'm getting chills talking about it. But that, to me, that's the amazing thing, that we discovered this. And it does change your perspective on the Holocaust. And I've done a lot of reading and studying, thinking about those things, but it certainly was worth Googling. I think I told you that I Googled my great grandmother's name and found her on a tree in Genie. And that's how it all started.
Yeah.
When people talk about Jewish families fighting and shouting, the first thing that comes to my mind is, you cut the toiki.
The line from the movie.
Um,
That is such a, the Sonnenfeld trilogy, about growing up in Baltimore as part of a German Jewish family. Yeah, you cut the toiki. You didn't wait for me. You cut the toiki, and that whole family leaves the Thanksgiving table, and they are never heard of again. Yeah.
And so, and the other thing I just wanted to mention, you used the word pathological, I think referring to yourself. And I feel like I could use a 12-step program myself, because I'm probably a bit too persistent in terms of trying to contact cousins. You know, there have been cases where I would try first on Facebook, then try email, try telephoning, try sending them snail mail at their home, sending them snail mail at their work.
Oh, no.
You get that restraining order.
Well, I actually in one case, after trying to contact probably, 10 relatives in this branch of the family, one person finally wrote and said to me, "Please stop." I'm serious, please stop. No one gives a leave.
We hated your father.
No, they had no idea of the relationship. But they just said, we don't,
Yeah.
yeah, we don't.
So hard with that.
Can I say something? Hello?
You want to say something first?
Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah, Barry?
Yeah, hi. Well, I'm just inspired by what I've heard, and I know, unfortunately, there were a lot of places where there were mass murders. Wasn't by any chance Jedwabne that you were talking about, the 4,000, that lady next to you?
Barbara?
I didn't hear. the
What
question.
was the question again, Barry?
I wanted to know whether it happened to be the same town as my family, Jedwabne.
Oh, it was Rogachev in
Okay.
Belarus.
So mine was Jedwabne, and I think we don't know the exact number, but a few thousand were herded into a barn, and the barn was set fire to. And I also assumed there was no remaining family. The name was Shklakiewicz, hence Clark, but a remarkable months-long journey via DNA led me to discover, it was distant DNA, but I put in the town and the name, and ultimately I came up with some people, and we had a very emotional Zoom gathering of a dozen different people who were all related from the I'm in my 70s, and our great-great-grandparents and above, even though we don't know their names, I had a DNA mentor figure out what the relationships were, and it sort of trickled down, and we've all gotten involved. Only one person still has the Shklakiewicz name. The others had all changed dramatically, so we'd never have found each other if it wasn't for DNA. And new people we are finding all the time. We just find some people in Israel that are cousins, and we're having another DNA Zoom at the end of the month. But I just want to tell people that if you know what you're doing with DNA, which I don't, but I have a mentor, you can make some extraordinary discoveries for people whose names are totally different. I mean, one's Grossman, another's Kaplan, another is Rosenthal. Another is Claire. Those are all the last names which were originally Shklakiewicz. So it's exciting what one can do with DNA to discover living cousins. Yeah.
Barry, your ancestor's town is famous. Several books have been written about Jabavne.
Right.
And there was a fictionalized movie.
A play, I believe.
Called Aftermath. If you haven't seen it, you should.
Is that the play? There was a play on Broadway or off Broadway about it. I hadn't heard of the film. Is it a documentary? Maybe
It's a Polish film based on what happened to Jabavne. called
Oh.
Aftermath.
I'm not sure if I've
It
seen
won
that.
the Oscar about 10 years ago for Best Foreign Film, and it's about a Polish man living in Chicago who gets a distress call from his brother who's living in a little village outside of Warsaw. And when the Chicago brother goes to find out what's happening, he discovers that his brother's being ostracized by the other members of the community because apparently there's a road coming through this small village, and he discovers that the road is being made from Jewish tombstones. And his
Oh,
brother is picking up the tombstones and creating a cemetery in his farm field. And
interesting.
what he's doing is antagonizing everybody in that community because they don't want to remember what happened. So
Yeah, there's a lot of controversy, isn't there, over if the Poles did it, if the Nazis did it, or who collaborated in it, and the books. There are a couple of major books. Are you saying there are a lot more than the two?
yeah, there are a couple of famous ones. And again, contact me after the meeting and I'll be happy to share with you.
Thank you. I'm sorry. What you're the Deborah the teacher, are you?
Debbie, the
Debbie.
teacher.
Debbie.
Not quite so formal as Deborah. Debbie the teacher.
Yeah. Okay, I'll do that. Thank you so much, Debbie.
Thank you for joining
Thank
us,
you, everyone.
Gary. Yeah. You wanted to make a comment also, yeah.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a kind of a unique story that happened a while ago and also recently. But about 10 years ago, my aunt, who died at the age of 97 about a year ago, got connected to a second cousin of her and of my mother's, who had done a great deal of genealogy on that branch of our family, my mother's father's family, the Burson family, and told us a lot about, that was really what stimulated my interest in genealogy. And I learned some interesting facts. I learned that we were related to Jan Murray, the famous, his actual name was Murray Janowski, actually. But anyway, so what happened was that I kind of corresponded with this gentleman quite a while, and then we lost contact with each other because it was 2016. It was the political environment. People had strong disagreements about things, and we did, and we stopped talking to each other. But recently, I've been trying to organize a reunion of that branch of the family. I have quite a few cousins, first cousins, and we decided to have a family reunion and try to reach out to some of the more distant second and third cousins. So in doing that, and this kind of resonates with I tried to email various people that I had sort of knew about through genealogy and make contact with them and had some success. And then this last week, I had a very interesting experience. I found emails, or at least what I thought were emails, for one of his sons of this man who died recently, the genealogist from Long Island, and also a nephew of his. And I reached out to both of them and sent an email. And the day later, I got back a response from his son, and it was vitriolic in the extreme. How did you get my email? Where did you come from? How did you find me? I don't have my email, it's not public. I don't think I'm really related to you. I've never heard of this branch of the family. You're lying to me. I'm not related to you. And then because of some comment that I made about the political situation, he said, you're probably one of those awful liberal who ruined the country. Blah, blah, blah. Well, that night, my ears were burning, I said, oh, this was a mistake. I shouldn't have tried to contact him. I just know it's a mistake. However, the next day, I got an email back from the nephew, who I had also sent, an email to, and he was the nicest. This was the nephew of this gentleman,
Not the son.
not the son, but the nephew, the son of the brother of this guy. And he's a professor of music out in California somewhere. And he wrote back, I'm so glad you wrote to me, because it sent me scurrying to my father's correspondence. And of course, he remembered the Burson family. And as a young man in, the early 1900s.
My uncle would love to hear from you.
Sadly, the uncle was no longer with us, but he would have been
Never
happy
thought
if
of his
But I'm so thrilled. I think I might want to be able to come to your reunion if I can, and I'm, happy to keep in touch. Let me know of anything else you find. And he said, I remember that the Burson name and the Burson family that, they used to visit them in Brooklyn when his father was a young boy. So I was thinking, gee, maybe I ought to send his email to the other guy. I didn't believe that we were related.
How old is this person that was the positive response?
I would say he's in his sixties, probably. Yeah.
The nephew?
The two of them, yeah, the son and the nephew were both in their sixties. The man who died was 90, the one who we had met in this, who told us about Jim. So I thought that was kind of a unique experience. I'm not sure if there's a moral in it or not, but.
Well, I thought Christine, a couple of you made some good comments about don't overload somebody with too much information, at least initially, because people have become extremely skeptical.
But I think a lot of people are paranoid about contact.
Sure, I get it.
Sorry.
Steve, did you want to add something else?
Yes.
And then we'll, by the way, we have the room until 4,
Oh,
so if we
great.
want to sit around and pivot some more and maybe, we've got a lot of expertise in the room. If people want to break up into small groups and ask for some suggestions for help, we can do that as well.
So this book was authored by a distant cousin of mine, Irvin Shermer. He grew up in Minneapolis. He made Aliyah in 1970s to Israel. He and his wife from Minneapolis, they were in their 50s. He retired early. He was a retired lawyer, but he was fascinating. He came to meet me. I was 22 years old at the time, and he was born in 1917, so he was probably 60. But he came to meet me in Columbus, Ohio, because he knew I had information about part of his family. But he ended up publishing a book about all his findings about all his cousins. And there's so much information in here. And every time I look at it, I learn something new. And it's fact, the one thing I want to tell you at the end of this book, what he did, which is very interesting. I don't know if anybody's ever seen this, or maybe you'll one day put a book together like this on your own family. But he's calling it a genealogical table. He's calling it the kinship of Irvin E. Shermer, who's the author. And this family came from Hungary originally, but this town, Humana, is now Slovakia. But he did a list of every person that he listed in the book from 1800 to present. And then he put their name, and then he said relationship to Irvin E. Shermer. And he has it all right detailed, like wife of the third cousin once removed. Wife of the second cousin twice removed. I mean, it was just fascinating that I have this book.
What is the name of it again?
Welcome Home Cousin. I wonder if it shows up on Google. Irvin, not Irving, but Irvin Shermer, Schermer. My great-grandfather Friedman's sister Esther married Lieb Shermer. So that's how I'm related to him. But yeah, so it is interesting, but how he put this list together. There must be 500 listings of all these cousins that he found. He lists every detail. Wife of the second cousin, once removed. I mean, I can't even.
Family Tree does that for you. There's a relationship.
It's probably in 2000, it's probably 2005, so it's over 20 years ago. So there were tools that he did not have, that weren't available now that are. So, but it is fascinating that he did the hardback book, and he distributed them to a lot of the cousins, including me.
Debbie, I'm gonna have to sign off now because I have a commitment at 3, but I want to say thank you. And also to our speaker and for letting me invite my cousin. So you all take care and bye-bye.
Welcome. Bye. All right, and do you want to formally adjourn the meeting, and then we can eat and kvel and
Let's
kibitz
adjourn, and we have a ton of delicious looking food. Stay and
meeting
nosh.
everybody. That was wonderful. Oh, Robert, is that Mrs.? Is that Mrs.? Susan.
You're in Chapel.
Yeah. Thank you. Oh, we're happy. Okay, those of you on Zoom, thank you very much for attending. I'm sorry we can't DoorDash the food over here for you. But maybe that'll be an encouragement for you to come to our next meeting. We always have food. So genealogy or not, you'll always be fed. Thank you. Again, you can reach me at debbietheteacher.com, or you can go to our website at trianglejgs.org. Bye-bye, everybody.
That's right.
Thank you, Debbie.